The fate of all these nominees rests in the hands of the new Republican Senate majority, which just elected its leaders for the next Congress. Here with me now is the newest member of the Republican leadership, James Lankford of Oklahoma. Thank you so much for being here, Senator. Congratulations. As a new member of the leadership, you are going to, whether or not you're in leadership or not, you're as a senator going to be looking at all of Donald Trump's nominees. Are you planning to vote for all of them, or do any give you pause?
No, we're planning to go through the process on this. By the way, good morning and happy Thanksgiving coming up. But there'll be a long process that'll go through that has already begun, where individuals that have been nominated will come forward. We'll sit down with them in our offices. We'll get a chance to be able to talk. There'll be open hearings that'll start after January the 3rd next year when the new Congress is sworn in. So everybody's going to get a fair shake. Everybody's going to have the opportunity to be able to go through this process, and we'll let the process work out.
Let's dig into some of the picks. His pick for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She has a long history of questioning American intelligence. She repeatedly promoted Russian propaganda. She blamed the Ukraine war on the Biden administration and NATO rather than Putin. She wants the government to drop all charges against Edward Snowden. Nikki Haley called her a Russian, Iranian, Syrian, Chinese sympathizer. You're a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Will you support her to oversee America's intelligence community?
Yeah, like I said before, we're going to go through hearings. We're going to get everything out. We're going to get facts and information and get the entire story. She is somebody who has been very outspoken. She's obviously a past member of the military. She's a veteran herself. She's had the opportunity to be able to travel quite a bit around the world as a member of Congress to be able to interact with folks. And she's not been afraid to be able to speak out and to say, hey, I disagree on some areas. But that's a very different role than saying, what is your philosophy and what is President Trump's philosophy of how we're going to handle national intelligence? We have very important people that serve in our intelligence community. Literally every day our nation is at risk, and people around the world that most folks will never meet and will never get a chance to know are serving our nation. When you see a member of the military, many people will pay for their lunch or get a chance to say thank you to them. The members of our intelligence community, most folks don't ever know, don't get a chance to say thank you, but it's really important that we have leadership there that's able to support them and able to get them on focus.
Does anything about her concern you?
Well, we'll have lots of questions. She met with Bashir Assad. We'll want to know what the purpose was and what the direction for that was. As a member of Congress, we'll want to get a chance to talk about past comments that she's made and get them into full context. So sure, there's comments that are floating out there, but we want to be able to know the rest of the story.
Okay, let's turn to the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi is Donald Trump's new nominee for Attorney General. She's a longtime ally who defended him in his first impeachment trial, helped promote the 2020 election fraud claims that he was pushing. Trump also named his personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, as Deputy Attorney General and is reportedly considering firing FBI Director Chris Wray and using the DOJ to probe the 2020 election. As you well know, the Justice Department is supposed to be free from political interference and pressure from the White House. Will that no longer be the case during the second Trump term?
I don't think we know that one way or the other. I think President Trump does want people that are loyal to him. He wants to make sure that the people that are around him in the cabinet are at least directionally the right direction. This has been a question, quite frankly, since the Kennedy administration, when President Kennedy put his brother in as Attorney General. So that kind of statement of this has always been neutral or that this is supposed to be that way, it should be. It's America's lawyer. It's not the president's lawyer. But it's also someone that the president wants to know is heading the same direction that they are, because it's very important. When you talk about the attorney general, they're the key component on the prosecution of federal crimes around the country, and every single U.S. attorney around the country works for them and with them. So it is very important that we get this role right and that they're actually focused on diminishing crime in America and make sure we're getting good prosecutions.
Senator, I want you to listen to what Pam Bondi said on Fox News last year about this department that she is nominated to lead.
The Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated, because the deep state, last term for President Trump, they were hiding in the shadows. But now they have a spotlight on them, and they can all be investigated, and the House needs to be cleaned out.
Are you on board with her going after career prosecutors and investigators as retribution for Donald Trump?
I don't know if it's retribution. I think it's trying to be able to get us back to neutral and to balance on that, Dana. Quite frankly, we have U.S. attorneys that were appointed by President Biden that had his perspective and his focus. Obviously, many of those will switch out to folks, as every single president does, as they change out U.S. attorneys. But we also have individuals within the FBI, and that was very well known after President Trump came on in 2016, that there were members of the FBI that hated him, that were in senior leadership, that were working to be able to undercut him. Peter Strzok, multiple others that were actively working to try to undercut the president. I think it's entirely appropriate for Pam Bondi to step in and to say, or whoever that is, the Attorney General, to be able to step in and say, we're not going to allow someone to try to undercut the President of the United States in this Department of Justice. You've got to actually be balanced in about justice, not about attacking the President.
Yeah, which makes sense. But the question is whether or not they're going to go after his, who he perceives to be his political opponents.
Well, if they're political opponents, they should be advocates for America, not opponents of the president. So if someone is in the Department of Justice right now that is actively trying to undercut the president, they should be gone.
Well, what I meant was using the Department of Justice to go after his opponents outside DOJ in that particular question.
Well, we'll see on that. I would tell you the past is prologue in some ways on this. When President Trump came in, it was very clear that Hillary Clinton had used Russia and all of the connections that were there that came out to try to influence the election at that time in 2016. President Trump didn't go after Hillary Clinton. After he came into office in 2017, he said, hey, we're not going to do that. Obviously, he had a great meeting with President Biden where they sat down together in the Oval Office, talked about the transition, and seemed to work to be able to move on. So I don't see any evidence of that kind of retribution. But if this is a person that is against that agenda, that is clearly not just Trump's agenda, is America's agenda, then they should step aside and to say, hey, let America be America.
Senator, I want to ask about immigration, which is, of course, a top priority for Donald Trump, a top priority for you. You negotiated a major bipartisan immigration deal. Kamala Harris supported it. As you, of course, painfully remember, Donald Trump single-handedly tanked it. What do you expect to happen now that he's returning? Do you think there's any chance your bill can be resurrected? Something along those lines, maybe something different?
Right. So I would disagree that Donald Trump single-handedly rejected it or tanked it. Obviously, members of the Senate had to be able to speak out on that. But I would tell you, the bill itself had two major sections of it. One is it cut off funding in many of the programs that President Biden wanted until he started actually enforcing the border. The second portion of it fixed what's called the asylum loophole, that is a gap in our law that's being exploited right now. Obviously, the first part of that bill is no longer needed. No one thinks that President Trump is not going to enforce the border. He's going to enforce the border, so that portion of the bill is not needed anymore. We still are going to need a law to be able to fix the asylum loophole, and I'd be glad to be able to work with the White House to be able to get that done. President Trump spoke out about that when he was president before, saying we need to be able to resolve those issues. We will in the days ahead and be glad to be able to work with the White House to be able to get that done.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask about something that's going on now in the Texas School Board, which voted this week to incentivize public schools to use an optional curriculum that incorporates Bible lessons. It began earlier this year in your home state of Oklahoma, which required schools to have Bible in classes and include the Ten Commandments in lessons. You are a pastor, you are a public official. Both of these issues are very near and dear to your heart. Do you think it's appropriate to incorporate religion into public education like that?
Well, let me tell you a couple things that we're doing in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, we're allowing students to be able to do off-campus religious education. If they want to have actual religious education, they can do that off-campus. It's an elective like choir or band or any other number of electives that are out there, arts. They can get a chance to be able to do also off-campus religious education. So any conversation about the Bible shouldn't be a religious tone. Will know that my Christian faith has impacted my life dramatically, and I am the primary teacher to my children of my faith. That shouldn't be a public school teacher to do that. But saying that, the Bible is also a part of Western civilization and part of our founding. Many of our founders were very passionate about Scripture and about the Bible and studied it. So as a historical document, as a cultural document, it absolutely should be taught in schools. As a religious document, that's up to parents and to faith leaders off campus.
Oh, fascinating. That's a really interesting way to explain it, as always, on those issues and all of them. Senator James Lankford, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to see you again.